and very ostentatious with a video link. That was a last minute request from people from outside South Africa and that were quite far from here. So that's going to be an interesting addition to today. Sorry, I'm just going to read my notes here because power sharing caught me out a bit today. I had printed it all out and then I had got caught by the power sharing. I've got two stories to tell, and I think they'll fit in nicely with the day. Anne tells a story. Many years ago, her brother had a horse called Tommy, and her and Tommy and her grandfather were out riding towards Willsview, and unfortunately Tommy was a bugger, as she would say, and he was trying his damnedest to get off by scraping her up against the barbed wire fence. So her grandfather came up behind her and he said to her, "Just hang on now," and she smacked Tommy, and he took off towards Tetukulu, what she calls Tetukulu arrest to bed, and she also did say that was the launch of her racing career, because it never turned back from that point. The other story I've got, I only discovered the story in the last few days. Her first horse that came here to Scottsville to race was a horse called Irish Comet. Now, Irish Comet, I don't know too much of his history, maybe Doug will know, but he started out by breaking free from the gates and running away, and the chief staff on the day, Jock Sprower, said, "Mrs. Upton, please will you load your horse?" And he's not to come back here again. He's uncontrollable. So he went from racehorse to uncontrolled to riding heck in a very short space of time. But that didn't stop Anne. She carried on, as you can see, in the many horses over the years. She was very successful. But I think therein lies her secret, was that she kept it simple and she gave the horses something else to think about. Looking out their boxes at the monkeys playing on the railway line and the telephone lines, that's not something that horses are normally expected to do when they race horses. As I said earlier on, later in life, I spent a lot of time with Anne, visiting everywhere, and the one thing that I really got, that I picked up with her, is that her energy was very contagious. Wherever she went, she was very eager to share her knowledge. She was single-minded in what she said and did. Whether it was popular or not, she did it anyway. So in some of the notices that you would have seen, she did it her way, and she certainly did. She practiced what she preached, and she didn't really care if she stood on your toes, but she would share a whiskey later on with you if that was the way it was going to be. Anyway, let me not hold it up anymore. Let me invite Doug to expand on where we're at.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real privilege to have been asked to say a few words about Anne. I've known her since I was a little boy. But first of all, I think on behalf of everybody here, I want to say a special thank you to her niece Fiona and her husband Ian. Anne had no children, and Fiona, you and Ian have been absolutely amazing. She hasn't been well for quite a while, and the way you've taken care of her has been absolutely amazing, and all of her friends can't thank you enough what you've done for her. Thank you so much. And not just taking care of Anne, but her dog and all her cats as well. We really appreciate that. I've known Anne for 70 years. My parents had a small holding about 5 miles, I still talk in miles, from Atherton, where Anne lived. And I first met her when I was 8 years old, having riding lessons with Anne. She had a riding school called the Anne Hampson School of Riding. And she'd had a wonderful grounding, being taught by Liz Johnson, the mother of Ben Johnson, and the grandmother of Nick Johnson, and Joyce Tatham, Rob Smith's aunt and her own mother, Ruby Hampson. They gave her a fantastic grounding in riding horses, and she started up this riding school called the Anne Hampson School of Riding, because I was mad about horses when my parents took me there, and she gave me a lot of lessons about how to look after a horse, and I just loved hanging around the yard there, and I can assure you she certainly put me to work. She'd put me in the tack room and show me how to clean saddles and bridles. You just didn't go around, but just the way she handled her horses was amazing. And she helped us kids prepare horses. We all were mad about gymkhanas, whether it's potato and bucket or bending race. She knew how the shortcuts and how to do it, and she was a real wonderful horsewoman, because we all loved gymkhanas. And then we also, Anne was playing polo, ladies polo at Lions River with her great friend Barbara Mackenzie. And my first taste of polo, Anne took me to go and play polo with the ladies when I was about 10 or 12 at Lions River, and the bug was bitten. I've never enjoyed a game so much, and had some wonderful memories of all the polo matches we played over the years. And I can't thank Anne enough for that. And also, when we were kids, we all wanted to ride at the Royal Show. They used to have riding classes for kids, and she used to come there and help us make sure the ponies are turned out properly. She really took an interest in everybody, not just the rider, but the horses especially. And when Anne started training, there used to be a lot of hurdle races and point-to-points at Otter's Bluff and around, and she used to help us get horses ready for that, and was a great help for us. And there was amateur racing at Richmond, up at the Berg, and all over, and she often used to get given horses. And I remember she gave me a wonderful horse called Puccini, which is a top division horse, another one, Fair Start. And I remember taking Fair Start out to Richmond races when I was 13. She lent me her horse trailer, which was, nobody had horse trailers in those days. We used to ride from Hilton to Maritzburg to Pony Club on our ponies. But we got out to Richmond, and Jean Newell, who was working for Anne, used to ride work. She rode in the race and won for me, and I was 13. It was a wonderful experience under Jockey Club rules at Richmond. It was really wonderful to be able to do that. It was a wonderful start. And then Anne, with her training, had to put a track in. So she found a fire break up at World's View, and she put a sand track in there to train her horses. And now the jockeys in those days were very keen to help. And the great Charlie Behrens and Vic McMurtry, they approached her and they said, look, they'd like to try and test this track out for her to see if it needs to be sorted out. So I was really honored. She asked if she could borrow a couple of my riding horses for them to use. And gee, to those days, when I was a young boy, they borrowed them, galloped there and made some alterations. But it was such a privilege for a young boy to meet these champion jockeys, which everybody stood in awe of. And it really was wonderful through Anne how I could meet these people. And as Anne was getting going, we'd heard about Irish Comet bolting here. I did hear it was a bit shin sore as well, which she hadn't picked up, but Sproul picked out about that. But as she was going, the late Frank Lambert, our friend Bill Lambert's father, was chairman of the City Sporting Club, and he was very friendly with the Birch brothers. And Anne just recently got married to Lou Upton, a fantastic Natal cricketer. At one stage, she even tried to teach him to ride a horse. I remember borrowing one of my horse fleets, but he didn't take to riding. He was more keen on his cricket. He was a great cricketer. And when they were on honeymoon down the Cape, they visited the Birch brothers, and Ted Birch sent them 3 horses. Amongst them was Dowry and Infringe, and Infringe gave Anne her first winner here at Scottsville. That was in 1957, I think, somewhere around there. And it was a wonderful start with a lovely relationship she had with the Birch brothers, because she had other horses come on. She had Dowry, and he was a colt, then became a stallion, and she actually used him for breeding as well, and bred some good horses like Dowry's Son and Dowry's Double. So it was wonderful what she could do. A short while as she got going, the late Terry Ryan approached her and said, look, he's got a very difficult horse, and it's a non-sweater, and there is Timpanist. He was beautifully bred by the great Drumbeat, and approached Anne if she would take this horse and try it. You know, the horse arrived up at Hilton. He was an impossible horse, non-sweater and very difficult to handle. But with Anne's patience, she had recordings of commentaries of the late Ernie Duffield playing outside his stable. She had tapes hanging up because they said tape starts to start off with in those days, and eventually got him right. And the Timpanus turned out to be a champion sprinter, winning 9 races, can you believe it, after a person like Terry Ryan, who was a good trainer. She did a wonderful job with a difficult horse like that. And then with this going on, the great Fred Rickaby, who saw what was happening, and he had this wonderful owner, Cyril Herberts, in his stable, and he had a horse called Furious, which wasn't doing very well. He was a bit backward, and he approached Anne and said, look, would you consider taking this horse? So, of course, Anne would love to take a horse like that, and she took Furious on. And as you know, what a wonderful job she did with Furious. He went on to win 14 races, won the Holiday Inns and the Gold Cup. And by winning the Gold Cup, Anne became the first woman in the world to win a Group 1 race, which was a fantastic achievement coming from South Africa as well. And what a wonderful trainer she was. And at a later stage with this success, Alistair Gordon, who was a top trainer in Natal as well at that time, had a difficult horse called North Island. And he spoke to her and she took North Island. And as one of the owners of North Island was Peter White, who sorted this lovely pavilion out here for us. And that was the start of their relationship. As you know, North Island also won the Holiday Inns, which was a wonderful feather in Anne's cap. And Anne loved animals and people. And at one stage, she went up to Scott Brothers Stud, and she was there talking to John Chandler, the vet. And while she was talking to him, a lovely lady from America was there. Her name, it was John Chandler's fiancée, Alice Bell. And she owned a top stud in America, in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky. And they became great friends, just chatting. And it was lovely. I know it was a highlight, one of Anne's highlights of her life. She was invited to Lexington, Kentucky to go and stay with Alice and John, and there she was able to see the great Nijinsky and Sir Ivor. I know she often talked to me about what a wonderful trip, and I know Diana, I've been privileged to go there through Brian Baker sending us there one day, but what a wonderful place to go to. And then quite a short while later, after all these successes, Cyril Hervis invited Charlie Whittingham to come out from America to come and select a couple of horses to be taken from South Africa to go and race in America. And one of those horses was a horse called Red Wing, which Anne was training. And he was about to go, and unfortunately, a few weeks before Red Wing was to go to America, he got African horse sickness and unfortunately couldn't go. But Charlie Whittington was so impressed with the way Anne ran her stable and treated her horses, he insisted that she still had to come across to America and stay there with him. And he took her around a lot of tracks in California and hosted her there. It was a real feather in her cap to be invited by a champion trainer like Charlie Whittingham. And lastly, Anne, she was small in stature, but I tell you, she was big in her principles. And she had a wonderful knowledge of working with people and grooms. She spoke Zulu fluently. All her grooms respected her, and even other trainers' grooms respected her. And I've actually had a couple left, and I had an old man, Geyser, who couldn't ride work when I was living in Hilton, and he came and worked with wonderful horsemen. And I've still got one of her last Ndunas, a chap called Seven, working for me, and he's a wonderful chap, and he was taught so well by Anne. And sorry. And as to finish off, I feel as it is a memorial to Anne, there's some fitting words I'd like to read to you, which I think speaks of Anne, from Proverbs verses 6 and 7. The Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth comes knowledge. He holds victory in store for the upright, and a shield to those whose walk is blameless. And I think that sums up what Anne Upton was like. And we thank you all for coming here today to see her. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. That was actually better than I anticipated. You took it away. I lost half of my repertoire in my. I'm not used to doing public speaking, but you aced it. Um, a special request of Anne's was that we at least go to the effort of having a hymn, and she chose this hymn. Um, and yeah, we had quite a discussion about this. And the reason for her this choice of him was that she said she didn't want anything to be morbid. It needs to be something bright and breezy, as she considered herself. She was bright and breezy. So, um, if you guys would like to stand up and let's give us this hymn a go. Oh, sorry, and there's no music. I cancelled the marching band. Remember. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors, He made their tiny wings. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Purple-headed mount, by the sunset in the morning, that brightens up the sky. And here we go again. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. The cold wind in the winter, the pleasant summer. He made them everyone. It's bright and beautiful. All things creatures, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. He gave us eyes to see them, and lips that we may tell, and how great is Almighty, who has made all things well, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and share an anecdote of Anne and what she did or didn't do? You have your opportunity now to make right what may not have been right. Um,
Good afternoon. I'm Alan McKeown. I actually also knew Anne for just on 70 years, and I was actually at school with her brother at college with Howard, and so I got to know her then. But I'm really not here about that. I'm here as a former steward of the Turf Club. I'm pleased to see Bill Lambert is here with me as well. And I just wanted to say thank you to Anne on behalf of the Maritzburg Turf Club for the support that she gave us here in Maritzburg over the years. We're very appreciative of that, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, you had your opportunity. Dig in for another hour of my voice. Okay, one thing that I admitted in my opening speech was, aside from horses, Anne had another talent. Well, a couple of other talents, but they all related. Anne grew phenomenal cattle. And she was when she retired, she was very proud of her cattle. And she had an advisor, Robert Smith, and they would weekly discuss the merits of the right and the wrong and the wild and the woolly, and then they would see to it that in 8 months' time or 6 months' time, however long it took, the cattle beasts, as she would call them, to grow out and go to the auction, they would have a weekly meeting and discuss those cattle. Another thing that Anne was very good at was fowls, particularly guinea fowls, and white ones at that. I'm not sure, I don't think the professional people have worked out where she found white guinea fowl, but she found white guinea fowl and they followed her around the Midlands. She never moved them, they moved themselves. So at Red Wing, at Tweedy, she had white guinea fowl. At Sakabula, they followed her there. She took I can attest to there being no fowls moved to Sakabula, but they found her. And in her final days, she would go out every day and feed the darker, the reedbuck, and the guinea fowl, the white guinea fowl. They had to be white guinea fowl. Anyway, there were some wayward hawks that made occasional mistakes, but after the double-barreled fowl protector standard out, the hawks moved on. So that's one of the success stories of why she was able to raise phenomenal fowls. Anyway, yeah, I'm done. If there's anyone else that would like to have anything to say. Otherwise, I'd like to invite Fiona, her niece, to come up and have her say.
Hello everybody. I'm just going to close with an ode to the horse. As we say farewell, please feel no sorrow, for time on this earth we only borrow. Lucky was I, my heart had a home, and with you by my side I felt not alone. You filled my life with happiness and light, my soul shall remain eternally bright. Love cannot end, it cannot disappear. I will always be with you, I will always be near. And now that my journey has come to its end, please know and take comfort in this, my friend. For me, for my life, please do not grieve, for now I remain forever free. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so then nothing remains but for us to close off, and Gold Circle have very kindly offered us refreshments upstairs, so please feel free to join us. But just finally, I'd like to just say a big thank you to Gold Circle.
Yes, thank you.
They really have
Stood by us.
they've stood by us.
Yes.
They've surpassed anything that I expected.
Yes.
I expected them just to make the venue available, but they have really stood up, and they've offered all the little things that have happened today behind the scenes. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very much.
And thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you very much.
Finally, just what Anne would have said, I know she would have been very overwhelmed with the support. There's quite a lot of people that would have liked to have been here today, and obviously for whatever reason are not able to be here. When we first made the announcement that she's passed on, my phone and my Facebook page didn't stop for nearly a week. Lots and lots of messages. I got a phone call from John Chandler from America to say please pass on his condolences, and he is with us today. Him and his family are with us today. So that was quite special. I know Anne spoke, as Doug said, spoke very much about that trip to America. It made a hell of a big impact on her life. She also tells the story of traveling through England with an iron in her bag so that she could make sure that her clothes were properly ironed. So that's not something I would have expected her to worry about, but that was something that she did mention. Anyway, she would have said, I just did what I enjoyed, and I think let's leave it there. Thank you very much.